If you can keep good afternoon, good day. Thank you so much for joining Club Carnivore. This is Miss Lafla Nikki, and we're getting an echo. Is that Bowie?
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. But there is a bit of an echo. So yeah, echo and static. Can you unplug your headphones? I wonder if that's doing it. Or are you wearing headphones? No. There.
Now.
Not now. Okay. There we go. Now can you, Bowie, are you there?
Bowie, your microphone is muted at the moment because that will happen when you take your headphones out.
I have no headphones. I have nothing plugged in.
You are here now. There we go.
Loud and clear our end now. So it looks like we might have resolved that. So that's good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We have on Club Carnivore today, we have a very special guest. His name is Bowie Matteson. And I've been watching Bowie maybe for 2 years. I don't know when the first time I started watching you, Bowie, but Bowie has inspired me to keep learning about type 1 diabetes because I have type 1 diabetes and I've been diagnosed. I was diagnosed 2.5 years ago. Originally was diagnosed as type 2. And anyway, so Bowie inspired me. He's not carnivore. However, he must eat very healthy, a low carb. He must eat. We have not had this conversation yet, but I've seen a bit of what he eats, and I'm very interested in his research. His information that he offers online is very powerful and I think very useful to anybody who is a health coach wanting to learn about diabetes. He's been living with type 2 diabetes for 24 years, and he combines his lived experience with cutting edge research. He focuses on beta cell preservation, regeneration, and the terrain first model of healing. Bowie, I'm just wondering, can you just introduce yourself and then go into what you would like to talk about today? We're talking about iron overload is our topic. So would you like to introduce yourself and take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nikki and George, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the introduction. I've had type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed in 2001 after at 8 years old, after a childhood full of infections. I had Lyme's disease a few times, constant ear infections. My immune system was kind of always just a few steps behind, and bouts of antibiotics. I kind of lived like any millennial kid in the early 90s, eating and living a relatively unhealthy and malnourished lifestyle. And it manifested in type 1 diabetes at 8. And for the 20 of the 24 years that I've had it, I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. Now, I lived a healthy life. I exercised. I managed my blood sugars well enough to, live a normal life. But I was always resolved to the idea that I would have it forever, and that it was just kind of the result of genetic determinism, and that was all I could do about it. Now, that shifted about 4 years ago when I started to just entertain the idea that maybe there is a little bit more to this. I got into holistic wellness and learned firstly about iron overload. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole on iron, its role in energetic metabolism, the web of minerals that supports iron, its pivotal role in basically any sort of cell, tissue, and organ health. And ever since that moment 4 years ago, it has kind of bled into all of the projects that I've taken on in my personal life in terms of how I take care of myself and my my need to share it and kind of inform the greater diabetic community as to what's possible. So for this audience, and maybe you can speak on their behalf, Nikki, but I know you mentioned like wanting to know about diet and where all of this comes from. Is there a particular point that you want to start from? Because I mean, before we talk about how iron goes wrong, we kind of really need to start with why the body needs iron so badly in the first place.
Sure, let's start there.
Okay, so iron is absolutely essential. I don't want this episode to come across as an anti-iron campaign in the slightest. It is so incredibly important for blood sugar balance, for beta cell health, for metabolic health, that it's dangerous. It's dangerous how important it is. And part of what I've come to learn is respecting that balance and making sure that people know about how important iron is so that we can give it everything it needs to do what it needs to. So iron is an incredible molecule. It is evolutionarily conserved from single cell organisms all the way up to humans. There's no organism that does not have iron as a major part of its metabolic function. And I think when we kind of take that into account, we have to realize that our body has all of the programming it needs to conserve it, to protect it, to compensate for its ebbs and flows, right? So mitochondria don't make energy. It cannot make ATP without proper iron. It has to do with oxygen delivery in the body, right? Our lungs, what our lungs do for our body doesn't matter if iron can't get the oxygen where it's going. In terms of like redox balance and handling oxidative stress, iron and its balance is crucial to how that happens. And just on top of that, iron doesn't work alone. So things like copper and the supporting enzymes that help our body use and balance copper and iron, things like ceruloplasmin, vitamin A for mobilizing and activating ceruloplasmin, magnesium, calcium, these are all things, aluminum, they all feed into how our body is able to properly manage iron. So the things that make iron so incredibly important, right? It's energy dense. It is very energy intense. And so when a cell needs to create iron or needs to create energy, iron is there to help facilitate that. But it needs to be funneled properly, right? So our body has a ton of innate defense mechanisms to ensure that iron doesn't end up where it's not supposed to go. And I always like to use the analogy with a car, right? Gasoline, like your car needs gasoline. That's what's lighting the fire in the engine. That's what's firing the pistons. But it needs to be in the gas tank. If you douse your car in gasoline, it'll be what burns your car to the ground. And so I think iron is exactly that. And we're living in a world now in terms of food quality, lifestyle habit, nervous system regulation that has dissolved our gas tank. And we just have gas where it's not meant to be. And iron is exhibiting its energy intensive qualities in areas where they cannot manage it.
Go on.
So just from there, you are looking to take this electricity that iron is supplying, which is indispensable when it's contained. It's how everything goes, and preventing it from becoming destructive when it leaks. So especially in the keto and the carnivore community, I'm always interested in the relationship people with diabetes have with sugar, right? Because sugar is commonly painted as enemy number one, right? Is that right?
I would say so.
Right.
And sugar and carbs, in my opinion, too, right? Lots of carbs.
Oh, and carbs is just a fancy word like for more complex sugars, but at the root,
Yeah.
the building block is glucose, lactose, any combination of sugars. But my issue with that is what does our body need more than anything to actually use that sugar? It's iron.
It's iron. Okay, yeah.
So if our mitochondria doesn't have iron, glucose can't be processed to create ATP. In excess of iron, our mitochondria can't sustain a healthy redox balance, and those mitochondria start to suffer at the hands of the sugar being supplied. Now, independent of the sugar, if there is iron, too much iron there, you're still going to have the oxidative stress that leads to mitophagy or the die-off of mitochondria. So in my experience, sugar is getting all of the attention when it's really more of a byproduct of this iron imbalance in the mitochondria. Now, that's not to say that that's like a free pass to like, oh, sugar's not the issue, I can eat as much. No, I think we can use a little bit of common sense when it comes to like approaching food in a healthy way. But I am not at all anti-carb, anti-sugar. I am much more focused on making sure that my mitochondria have the material needed to process it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're, if the trash is building up in your kitchen, I mean, you need glucose at a certain degree to maintain a healthy metabolism, right? Because even gluconeogenesis, even in a ketogenic state, all of those fats, all of those proteins, while being used as fuel, they are fuel, but it's because they're being broken down into glucose, essentially making glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. So it's a matter of giving your body the tools to process the sugar, not necessarily the sugar being the issue itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you say about the ketogenic state? Can you talk to me about the ketogenic state? You mean you must be in ketosis if you're only using 30 units a day. I know I heard that you said 30 units, and for a type 1 diabetic, that's very small amount. So you must be hitting ketosis. You're not eating a high carb diet or high sugar, of course, because if you were, you would not be taking only 30 units a day.
It depends.
So you must be hitting ketosis.
Not necessarily. I mean, if I were to take a keto, like if I were to test for ketones, I don't think I would pass them because I'm not at all shying away from carbohydrates. I bake my own bread. I make my own pasta. I eat fruit, honey, maple syrup, molasses. Those are all a part of my regular daily diet.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to be focusing on now is what is high carb, what is low carb. What is everyone's acceptable definition of what that actually means?
Yeah, that would vary for sure.
Again, it completely depends on where you're coming from. It depends on your capacity to process the carbohydrates that you're eating. I think people with type 1 diabetes need to recognize that it is not just an absence of insulin that is your issue. It is advanced insulin resistance. So people with type 1 diabetes are accustomed to the idea that, oh, we just need more insulin. without ever accounting for the fact that we have lived in an inflamed state for so many years. How could we not be resistant to insulin? But because we don't have that baseline of, oh, well, I didn't need it before, and now I, type 2 diabetes, there's a little bit of, you get to witness your loss of sensitivity. With type 1 diabetes, with how we keep track of it now, it's didn't have diabetes before, triggering event, now I have it. So we have no frame of reference for how much we needed before and how much we need now. Does that make sense?
I guess so, yeah.
So,
but I don't know how a type 2 would know. I think personally, actually, I think we know a very fine tune as type 1s, how much we need now. And I don't know how different we'd be from a type 2 from before. None of us know how much we needed before. Does that make sense? Yeah. But type 1s, we know exactly how much we need, and we know exactly when we're resistant, and we can fine tune it like right to the hour, really. Would you say?
But from the baseline though, like when you're like, yes, you can monitor your numbers and watch, you can see your trends and how, in the mornings you're going to be more resistant because of that cortisol spike and throughout the day. But that's all kind of in the micro scale. But when you zoom out and see what the baseline system needs, there's a lot of underlying chronic inflammation that is dictating how that, the micro, the daily is reacting, right? And that, brings me back to how I feel about ketogenic and carnivore, any combination of the two. I think that ketogenic and carnivore diets are extremely useful for their inert effect on inflammation. They are very good at not being inflammatory. They are allowing for rest, so to speak. They're not making things worse. But that doesn't mean that they are pro-healing. Does that make sense? So not making things worse is not the same as addressing the issues. And so I think that ketogenic and carnivore diet are excellent ways to help calm things down and discern what needs to be done and in what way. But is it addressing the underlying imbalances that caused the systemic failure in the first place? That I don't think.
What would then?
What's that?
What would address it? What do we need to do? Like, what are you suggesting?
So we need to pay attention to our. First off, I'll say this is not. I do not like to paint with broad strokes. If I come across as vague throughout any of this, it's not like necessarily intentional. But this is a personalized journey. Everyone needs to be very in tune with your unique circumstances. Type 1 diabetes, as everyone in this chat room knows, is not uniform. Type 2 diabetes is not uniform. They are symptoms of any number of levels of imbalance and compensation, compensatory failure over time. So I would say education is the greatest tool, right? We need to understand what the systems are at play, get all of the puzzle pieces out on the table before we start trying to fix something right away. So to get to the actual answer, we need to start paying attention to the systems. So what if we're going to look at diabetes as the symptom of a final series of failures, we need to peel back the layers of what hold up our beta cells, right? Because for a body, the beta cells are the most important thing. They're what allow energy into the cell and to be used and to be stored for later. we right now with our autoimmune theory act like our immune system has just kind of decided that it's time for those to go to hell with the body. It makes no sense. It drives me wild. That's for another conversation. But what are the systems upholding the beta cell? I immediately went to the liver because the liver is kind of like ground zero for iron recycling, iron repurposing, iron metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it goes in line with a lot of what everyone is experiencing. From a detox standpoint, the liver is the filter. The liver is where everything is getting recycled. The liver has its hands in almost every metabolic process, from digestion to the endocrine system and making hormones, to our excretion system and getting rid of waste, nutrition, storing minerals, enabling different enzymes in the body. If the liver is at all compromised, every single system in the body suffers.
Right. Bowie, I just want to, this is so fascinating to me. And the research I saw it was a liver cleanse. Was it a gallbladder or liver where you actually got those stones come out? I thought that was just so cool.
Yes.
Unfortunate that it happened to you, but wow. Like, what do you think that was something? Can you explain that to everybody so they know what I'm talking about, please?
Yes. So I was consulting with a naturopath who just kind of haphazardly in passing mentioned the amazing liver and gallbladder flush by an author named Andreas Moritz. And he was a figure in the holistic health space. He has since passed, but he was really focused in on the relationship between the liver and the gallbladder in terms of getting rid of waste, and how a lot of our health conditions arose because of the inefficiencies of the digestive impacts and the excretion impacts that a liver and gallbladder would do. So it's very similar to Hilda Clark, I think is her name. She's a figure in the holistic health space as well. They have very similar protocols in terms of how to kind of purge a lot of this buildup in the liver and the gallbladder. Some people have their doubts as to whether or not it's effective, whether or not it's actually doing what it says it does. All I can say is that I have done it 12 to 13 times at this point, and the benefits were immediate from a skin and hair standpoint. I used to have a really, really receding hairline. I had thin, oily hair. I had acne. I had I sunburned. I was a skin or a burn and freckle kid for my entire childhood.
Uh-huh.
After a handful of those flushes, I tan. I don't burn. I'm of Northern European descent. I do not burn. My hair has returned to health. My skin is cleaner and softer than it ever has. My ability to digest complex foods has never been better. It really opened my eyes to all of the things that were running under the surface, because beforehand I had no reason to believe that there was anything wrong with my liver. I know the AST, the ALT feedbacks, like the go-to metrics for liver health. I had no reason to question it. And then all of a sudden I'm purging, these quarter-sized gallstones and liver stones, and experiencing relief after the fact for again, symptoms I didn't know I had.
Wow. And that was through the feces. That's how it was being just through the feces, right?
Yes.
I
passed them with bowel movements. And in the book, there's a week-long protocol to kind of like prepare your body to pass these. Non-invasive. It can be done with things that you buy on Amazon. There is no prescription necessary. It's affordable. You can do it from the grocery store. So that was eye-opening. Again, it wasn't like the answer, and I don't want anyone to kind of hear about this flush and think if they don't do this, then they're doomed, or if they do, they're cured. It is a piece of a much larger puzzle, but all pointing to the fact that the liver and the liver's ability to do what it needs to do are paramount to restoring systemic balance.
Correct. I believe you 100%. And I'm wondering how it affected your insulin, the amount you took and the response, because it only makes sense to me that once you cleared out that liver, your insulin response would be better and you would probably take less insulin because there would be less of a stress response. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I should say that I've rarely ever done any intervention in isolation. So, and the liver cleanse probably came about a year into my dive into diabetes pathology. But to your point, my digestion improved. If your digestion improves, you're going to be absorbing food at a more appropriate rate. You're going to be getting more out of your food from both a sugar, but also a nutrient and things to fiber standpoint. Everything improves when the liver improves. So I should say, I know you mentioned that I use about 30 to 35 units of insulin a day. That is still true.
That's still true.
That's still true. Before I started any of this, I was a pump user. I'm no longer a pump user, but I was a pump user. My daily basal rates, just baseline, keeping me afloat, were like 25 to 30 units, not including my corrections for food and meals. So I've cut my insulin usage by about 75% ever since I started working on this about 3 years ago.
So how much fast acting? I can't do the math. How much fast acting would you be taking in a day? Back then, before you reduced it.
Somewhere between 80 and 100 units.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a high carb, higher sugar diet then, if you're taking that much insulin then. So you reduced it a lot. How many meals a day do you eat?
It fluctuates. I have exercise. I've gone through both extremes. I've gone through extended fasting. I've gone to the multiple small meals throughout the day. Snacking four to six times. My sweet spot is probably somewhere between 2 and 4 meals. If I have 2 meals, they're going to be a little bit bigger just to make up that for calories. The 4 would just be 4 smaller ones. And again, that's all contingent on what my activity is for the day.
Right. So still you're doing very well, even if you're eating 4 times a day, which you don't necessarily have to, but because it depends on the way the type 1 diabetic manages their disease, on how many times they choose to eat, or they actually must eat, right? Depending on how they manage it. Right. If you're a carnivore, yeah. Right.
Yeah, no, it's entirely dependent on what your energetic needs are. It is dependent on what the line of communication is between your body and you. Some people are eating when they're not hungry. Some people are not eating when they are hungry because they think it's supposed to be one way and it's the other. It is about finding balance with what your life needs. If you have a really busy day where you are very active and burning and building muscle, or what have you, you're naturally you're going to need to eat more. And I don't think that you should limit. You should listen to your appetite. Most of the time. Again, we can talk about ghrelin activity, leptin resistance in those with type 2 and type 1, those all play a factor. Again, there's a little bit of common sense as well in building that connection between your mind and your body. But all that to say, there's a bit of intuition in this, and there is a process of kind of coming home to what it is your body's asking for and giving it what it's asking for. So for those that are, on the 1 meal a day, I remember being ketogenic and not being hungry 20 of the 24 hours of a day. again, I just needed less. Again, with that high fat diet, didn't need a lot. Looking back, I was eating a high fat diet at a time when my liver was most compromised. That can become problematic too, because where does bile come from? The liver. So if you're asking your body to digest a lot of fats, it's going to need more bile. Your gallbladder is going to need to be able to work effectively. And if you're just throwing back fats and your liver and your gallbladder can't do that, you're missing out on absorbing a lot of fat soluble vitamins. You're stressing. Gluconeogenesis is a relatively energetic, intense process. You can stress a lot of systems in your body that are already kind of operating from deficits. So that's another one of my my insights into whether or not ketogenic and carnivore is appropriate. And again, it's all context dependent.
It depends on where a person is at. It depends on the perspective, right? It depends on where somebody's at in their health journey.
Yeah. No,
Right?
belief, hope, and faith all have a very important role in all of this as well. You can do all of the right things if you are approaching it in the mindset of, God, I hope I don't mess this up. It's not going to do. It's not going to do what you need it to do. It's about acting in faith, using your own discernment, building a connection with your body, and being able to make meaningful steps forward, and constantly revisiting your process along the way.
Mm-hmm. Can you touch on your fasting experience and what you've learned through fasting?
Yeah, so I should say my longest fast is about 5.5 days.
As a type 1,
As
or
a
was
type
that?
1, yeah.
I guess so. You wouldn't be fasting when you were 8.
No. And that was fairly recently. It's
Wow.
It's an interesting experience. Again, for the longest time, I would get to 3 or 4 days, and I would, that would be enough. I couldn't really handle a whole lot more from an energy standpoint. In terms of what it does for your body, I think it can really clear or create clarity around your relationship with food. Right? We kind of come from a food dependent society where, like, oh my God, I have this feeling, this craving, I need it now, and if I don't get it, I'm gonna lose it. So it introduces some counterbalance to that. Be like, okay, maybe this is emotional hunger. Maybe I am using food as a crutch. Maybe there are better ways to kind of handle these feelings right now instead of just immediately grabbing a snack. Opposite that, I think from the extended fasting standpoint, the idea that you can starve yourself back to nourishment is completely counterintuitive to me. I don't buy the idea of people in hypersympathetic states, nutrient deficient states, not eating and just expecting their body to rebuild itself. Again, not that fasting doesn't have benefits in terms of creating space for your body to clear out what needs to be cleared out. But again, just like with the ketogenic and the carnivore diet, is this helping to create space for healing, or is it healing itself? I think fasting is more in the creating space for meaningful healing as opposed to being healing itself.
I think fasting and the keto and carnivore diet, they're all creating space for healing, right? Like, because if we ate a bunch of carbs, then as a diabetic, it hurts. Like, we can literally feel and measure the data that it hurts, right? That doesn't create space for healing, right?
Right. And again, like, what are you eating your carbs with? Is there something there to help facilitate healthy uptake of carbohydrates? Does
Yeah,
your
and
body
there needs to be if you're eating, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, and
no
there
that
would
no
need,
that's
yeah, it would be necessary if you are eating, and everybody does their own thing. I don't want to judge anybody for doing what they do, right? But yeah, if you are eating the carbs, you're going to be needing something to whether it's fat. Some people choose fat, and some people choose fiber. Uh, People do as they do.
Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely. And spices as well. I think spicing your food is one of the most underrated ways of improving your absorption, improving your nutrient um, bioavailability. The
so
warming spice.
you don't think, yeah, they're detrimental, you're saying.
No, I think spices are very good.
Underrated. Oh, they're
Yes,
useful. Okay.
very
So,
good.
okay. Okay.
Yes, cinnamon,
Um,
turmeric, clove, um, coriander, cumin, ginger, garlic. Amazing, amazing health benefits um, for those with digestive issues, for those with diabetes.
and you've found measurable ways and to back that up on your own body.
I mean, I use them. I use them every day. Cacao, in terms of improving blood flow, in terms of improving nitric oxide and stem cell regeneration. I use them. I don't have measurable. I can't say, oh, when I use turmeric this many days and I experience this much progress. I think it's all a part of the body of work, my own body of work. I use them on a regular basis.
Okay. Everybody does their own thing. Um, I notice that if I have like cacao, my body does not like doesn't like it. Like it protests. Like it completely protests when I have cacao, which is not very often. It's a very small thing because I'm still a baby diabetic. I just do some testing sometime because I'm curious, right?
Hmm.
But so what is does George, do you have
Yes.
any questions for our fine guest?
Yeah, I'm particularly interested. I mean, I'm just sitting here learning because this is really totally new to me, but I'm interested in the spices. I hear quite a lot of people talk about taking turmeric with black pepper to increase the uptake of the benefits of turmeric. Have you got any thoughts on that, Bowie?
Yeah. So piperine, they're both a family of, I forget if alkaloids or flavonoids. They're antioxidants. So piperine is in black pepper, and then
Yep.
curcumin is the active component of turmeric. There is a synergy between piperine and curcumin in terms of allowing for bioavailability. Whenever I make my own capsules at home, so whenever I do turmeric, I always add a splash of black pepper just to help improve bioavailability. Now, a note on a lot of these very common antioxidants, like curcumin, like piperine, um, basically anything in the flavonoid or alkaloid family, they are iron chelators. So I think that I would argue that their greatest benefit to our health is scavenging free iron and preventing them from exacerbating existing inflammation. Because a lot of people just think antioxidant and they're like, oh, okay, fights oxidation. But when you ask, well, what is oxidation and how do you fight oxidation? A lot of antioxidant activity has to do with binding free iron and preventing the advanced oxidation that iron causes in the body.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the thing is that iron is obviously a metal in the outside world, and when it oxidizes, it rusts. So yeah, I think iron actually does. So I do understand the oxidative stress. Now I've got a very good friend here in England who believes in taking supplements to turmeric with black pepper. Now, the reason that I've gone away from using black pepper is not. I mean, I like it. I like spices, but it's very high in oxalates. Have you got any thoughts on oxalates and maybe calcium oxalates causing kidney stones? Is it a trade-off, or how do you feel about that possibility?
Same way that I do about iron. I don't think they are outright bad. I don't think that they are outright good. It is context dependent. It's going to depend on your gut's ability to process all of those things. In a compromised microbiome, which everyone with metabolic disease is dealing with, oxalates can be inflammatory. Now, again, it's a matter of creating enough balance and stability in your gut that what bad or aggravation the oxalates may cause is offset by the body's ability to use the very good nutrients and fiber that join the oxalates.
Okay.
It's a matter of balance, and it's about creating receptivity in the body. Now, same thing with ketogenic. It may be creating space where we're going no carb to allow our body to rest and kind of find out what it needs. You may go low oxalate just to like give your body a chance to like, okay, calm itself enough so that when you reintroduce them, you're not going to have this massive feedback. And Nikki, going to your response to cacao, sometimes there is this transitive period of basically like all of this iron being purged, right? Comparable to a Herxheimer reaction in terms of like, wow, all of this is creating this mobility. Everything that was locked away is now being brought into circulation. Is the body ready and prepared to actually get rid of what is being called into circulation? And that just brings into dosage, right? And limiting exposure over a longer period of time, as opposed to, let me just throw this back and see how it feels. Oh my God, it doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do this anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes.
What was that H word that you used? I've never heard that word before.
Herxheimer, Herxheimer reactions. So it's basically, it happens a lot in the detox space where people will go through a systemically beneficial, in terms of clearing, in terms of getting rid of things that needed to be moved, and they'll feel terrible because, again, everything was kind of, sealed away, stored away, again, festering and ultimately causing problems. But when you bring it out into the open, it causes a lot of issues in terms
So
of
that'd be
clearing.
like, okay. So would that be like what's happening when they say the keto flu?
Exactly. Same thing.
Yeah. What I'm thinking is it sounds a bit like is that Diana? No, I'm thinking about what Sally K. Norton says about oxalate dumping. That basically, when the body is used to oxalates, it kind of, as you say, stores them away. But then when you remove the oxalates, then you get the dumping process. The body tries to purge it, and that's what causes some symptoms. Am I right in thinking? Am I close to running a parallel there with the H word? I still can't pronounce it myself. I do apologize.
That's okay. So I'm not super familiar in like the balance of oxalates. But again, it would make sense from a balance standpoint, right? Like, let's just say someone is talking about the health benefits of Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
If I eat nothing but Brussels sprouts, that doesn't it's not good for Brussels sprouts, right? Brussels sprouts need to have some Brussels sprouts not get eaten, because those are the seeds that are going to allow for it to flourish later on. So it has a degree of protection that it needs to evolutionarily speaking exhibit on things that are consuming it. So it's balance. I think the idea with how prevalent oxalates are, again, there's obviously degrees. There are high oxalate foods, low oxalate foods, but like to think just immediately that half of the vegetables that we cultivate and grow up on are immediately bad for us doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And again, context dependent. I think we've pushed ourselves into a corner in that anything that isn't processed and isn't fortified in some way kind of doesn't make us feel well, and we kind of like feed this positive feedback loop of like, oh well, I'm only going to eat what feels good. What feels good makes me feel worse, and you kind of just keep going, right? Everyone kind of knows those people with metabolic disorders. They're obese, they're inactive, but the only thing that feels good to them is like mac and cheese, or like, like they'll only eat the thing. They're addicted to the things that are burying them alive.
I've heard it called comfort eating in the past. You're feeling bad, so you actually go to comfort eat, and you feel better temporarily. But what you're doing is reinforcing the cycle of metabolic illness, basically.
Right.
Well, it's like the toxins. It's like the toxins in alcohol. Somebody who's withdrawing, the cure for them is to have a little alcohol, and that's the physiological fix, but it's not. But
No.
So you're going to have a detox. A Herxheimer's reaction is a detox. If somebody comes off of alcohol or cigarettes, they have a detox. And there's some strategies. There are some people say you fight through it, and other people say, too heavy of a detox can be harmful, and we need to mitigate, we need to slow that down, meter and oxalate dumping is similar. It's not the same, but Sally says, you don't, if you start having a detox or a dumping reaction, have some green tea, or that little piece of chocolate could be therapeutic at that particular time.
She said that? Sally Norton said that?
Sally K. Norton, yeah.
Really? I'm surprised.
You have a little bit of oxalates, whatever it might be. Green tea, if you're a carnivore, green tea would be the least, interrupting to our to that dietary lifestyle. But you do need to, and I've gone through lots of oxalate dumping. And sometimes I actually use one piece of dark chocolate, but dark chocolate was my thing every day, at least once a day, but usually a couple of times a day. And that's how I got through my patient paperwork at the end of the day. And I realized it was an addiction. When I'd run out, I didn't replace it. And I'm having to sit there and do paperwork. And I'm just like fidgeting. And I'm kind of angry that I have to do this paperwork because I don't have that little bit of chocolate that gets me through the tasks that I don't really care to do. I'm like, wow, I am addicted to this. This is like a cigarette addict running out of their cigarettes.
Yeah.
So
do you have Deanna, do you have a question for Bowie?
I find what he's doing very interesting, and I think that our metabolic changes, it shows that we can, and that there are certain, food is medicine, and herbs, and, knowing how to use iron, that he's found what works for him. Unfortunately, I don't think that many people are as in tune. And I think you type 1 diabetics, you either have to get in tune with your body, or you become, a statistic. And, but one thing I think about when you sit there and you talk about the Brussels sprouts over and over again or whatever, or that we ate these things for so long and why all of a sudden they become bad. And I've done a lot of functional medicine training, and Eating the Rainbow and all this stuff came out. And I did the whole, the green smoothies and adding in the chia seed and flax seeds and all the stuff, to your power drink in the morning. But in reality, it goes back to the old adage of a little is good, a lot may not be, right? And if we think about what how our grandparents and great grandparents ate, they always had a plentiful of some type of meat or fish or something on their dinner plate. They might have some starch in the way of potatoes or carrots. And then maybe they had like a little bit of green beans or a side salad that, a salad plate. We still have salad plates, but that's not what people have gone to for a salad. They have a mega sized bowl with all the, the more raw and all the different things. And I think that, our grandparents' era and great grandparents, that little bit of side dishes worked. But when we have all these people that say my healthy diet has made me sick, or becoming a vegetarian or vegan or whatever, and consuming copious amounts of these plant foods, that wasn't natural. And for a lot of people, if they didn't overdo it, I think it's a more healthy people like myself that I ended up with such an oxalate overload contributing to osteoporosis and dental issues when, I gave up sugar 30 years ago. I was aware of that. However, growing up as a kid, I could have had poor bone development because I constantly ate sugar until my mid-20s. But I was also a sick and tired 20-some-year-old, and I didn't figure it out until I was 30, and then I went probably overboard. But, and I am not a diabetic, but so that's a whole different, thing to deal with. But I just think that if you didn't get your body so out of balance, and I think Sally's right. She was the one that I learned from, and then I decided to go carnivore, and that was January 6 years ago. So it's my 6-year carniversary today, actually tomorrow. But so I don't know. It's interesting as far as the question is, did you try carnivore?
Yeah, not carnivore specifically. I've been ketogenic. They were the periods of time that I was ketogenic, anywhere from 6 months to a year. I've done it 2 or 3 times. That was the worst my diabetic health had ever been. And it's not accusatory. It is because I checked out mentally, because my thought was, I'm not taking in carbs, I should be fine. I wasn't paying attention to my mineral balance. I wasn't paying attention to the fact that glucose still results from ketogenic and carnivore. There still is the degree of blood sugar management. But it never, I spoke about it a little bit before you came on, Deanna, but I see ketogenic and carnivore as being something that is anti-harm as opposed to being pro-healing. And I turned that page from getting myself to a point where, okay, I'm comfortable with preventing harm. I feel like I've restored my systems enough to stabilize. Now it's time to go in and actually repair what has been broken, as opposed to just preventing further harm.
So how would you explain the repair, the cellular repair? So not just symptom control and immune modulation, not immune suppression.
So when I learned about how influential iron was, I did a couple different things. So I learned about the supporting web of minerals that keeps iron where it's supposed to be. Trace minerals, things like copper, manganese, boron, magnesium, all the fat soluble vitamins, incredibly important. Zinc, all of the things that are very present in ketogenic and carnivore diets. I also donated blood for about a year and a half to 2 years straight, at about 2-month intervals. Every blood
That's
donation,
interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting story. Go
every
on.
blood donation offloads about 200 to 250 milligrams of iron. From my logic at the time was, I've got too much, got to get rid of it, while also simultaneously supplying the supporting nutrients. Because when you donate blood, that kicks in your erythrocyte production, right? Blood cell production goes up like crazy. Red blood cell production is very iron intensive. So the idea is, I'm getting rid of this iron. New iron, which has been stored and put away where it's festering and creating inflammation, is now being brought out into circulation. But if you bring it out into circulation and you don't have the tools to use it properly, you're just creating a new loop of the same problem that you were trying to get rid of by offloading that iron before. So that's why I brought in more copper, I brought in more zinc, I brought in all of these fat solubles, all of this magnesium, so that when I donated blood and all of this iron was like, oh boy, we've got to start making these red blood cells, they had all the tools to actually do what they needed to do, as opposed to creating the inflammatory loop.
So
I've got
that
a question. I
okay,
have a
go on.
question, Bowie.
Yep.
How are you on organ meats such as kidneys and liver and eating them?
Awful meats are great. They're a tool. Again, I don't think anyone should just be like, oh well, if I just eat all of this liver, kidney, whatever, that that's the root of the issue. No, I think you can overdo it, right? Liver is
Definitely
dense in nutrients, and again, food is only as nutritious to us as our ability to absorb it. More is not always more. We need to make sure that the systems that we need to process it are up to par with how much we're supplying it. And so, George, to answer your question, you should eat liver so long as it feels good. You can overdo it. I'd be lying if I said I had it once a week. I probably have it once every 2 weeks, once a month. Again, it just depends. But that strategy reigns in even what Deanna was speaking about with the oxalates. It's like, eating a lot of oxalates is fine so long as your body has the tools it needs to metabolize them and excrete them. If it doesn't, it's a problem. And I think that's true for just about any food type, any diet. And what I want your listeners to take away from this more than anything is not to just do what I do or expect the results I got because you did exactly what I did. You have to look at your system independently. You have to have the courage to try something, even if you're not sure. I mean, you want to educate yourself to the point of, knowing, putting your ducks in a row and executing as you plan to, but you are the one responsible for curing you. And, my goal in sharing all of this is to empower you to share what you learn. And then we can create this incredible web of, I did this for this reason because I was experiencing this. I have this history. You take this and transpose that over your system. It is not a step-by-step. You have to decide what step of my process works in your step, wherever you are in your process.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
Bowie, I had a question. So, just a thought, even some longer term carnivores that start having symptoms that may look like oxalate dumping could be that they've developed too much iron stored. And one of the remedies, like you did, was to give blood. And it has been recommended in the functional medicine world is that all men should give blood on a regular basis, and postmenopausal women who are no longer bloodletting naturally, we should be giving blood for that reason, but being mindful of what you said about replenishing appropriately and also balancing, like the person this morning, George, that asked a question about heart palpitations.
Yeah.
Minerals are key, and people don't realize how much sodium, especially in fortified things, they're getting out of all the packaged foods. And when you take out the packaged foods, your sodium intake drops to almost nil. And so it's not enough just to eat the animal food. We have to, be mindful of, and that our food used to be preserved in salt, right? Hundreds of years ago, we preserved it. So we got a lot of sodium, and but standard American diet, you take that stuff out, then you're deficient and you have symptoms. So,
And Deanna, just to add on to that, when we think, when you say salt to someone, they presume you're saying sodium. Salt and sodium are not synonymous. So sodium is a salt, but a full-bodied salt has sodium, it has potassium, it has calcium, it has magnesium. It is in a natural balance. The iodized, reduced, and processed table salt is sodium. I think an imbalance in sodium is not basis for salt restriction. We need salt in its balanced form for all of the electrolytes that it's delivering.
thank you.
Sorry, Bowie, I'm going to pick up on that. Am I right in thinking that actual natural salt then contains magnesium as well?
In trace amounts, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
Okay.
it's not like, oh, I don't need to take, I shouldn't eat all of these magnesium rich foods because I use sea salt or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's there.
The reason I ask is because back along I was suffering really bad night cramps, and I did read that magnesium would help with that. But before I went down the supplement route, I simply increased my use of, I was using pink Himalayan salt at the time. And I increased it quite dramatically to the point where I haven't suffered night cramps since. So, yeah, I didn't realize that magnesium was present in salt. I thought it was pretty much all sodium. So I'm wondering if even though it's only trace elements, I'm wondering whether the fact that I increased my intake of Himalayan pink rock salt so much is actually, it wasn't the sodium that sorted out my night cramps, it was the trace elements of magnesium. But you're just making me think out loud here. It's very interesting.
No, and it's not. It may be potassium. It could be any. It's more about restoring balance. It's less. Right. We've been so conditioned to see things in isolation. Like, oh, I've got too much iron. I've got to get rid of all the iron. Or I'm taking in too much sodium. I've got to get rid of all the sodium. A sodium issue isn't necessarily just sodium. It can be the cure for a sodium problem could be more potassium and not necessarily less sodium. The cure for too much iron may not be, oh, get rid of all the iron. It may just be, well, I need more zinc and copper.
Yeah. So the key word here is the imbalance, isn't it? So you don't necessarily need to reduce one. What you need to do is get the balance right by increasing the others. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly.
George,
Yeah.
I continued to use zinc and copper and magnesium, potassium as supplements along my carnivore course. It just
Okay.
it feels good to me. And you know, we have a thing on basics. It's a sodium potassium pump in our muscles, which make our muscles contract, but magnesium makes the muscle relax. So if you've seen a runner drop dead of a sudden death heart attack at the end of his race, or somebody on a basketball court drop, a lot of times they've depleted all their magnesium and their heart contracts into tetany, and it doesn't relax, and it creates that heart attack or that muscle, or at a lesser degree, it's the muscle cramp. But there's also manganese and all of that. If you don't have enough of these other things, then you can't process the sulfur that's in meat.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
sulfur is very important, and a lot of people in a standard American diet are very deficient in sulfur, and that's part of their problem. But you need manganese and what is it? Molybdenum. Molybdenum is a magic one for that. So,
Yeah, no,
so
and
it's very interesting. I think minerals are a huge place of study and fine tuning for people.
Absolutely. When I remember, I did like a 36-hour fast, and and then on that day, just before I broke it, excuse me, I have a meeting soon, but it's okay. We're gonna drive. Um, I went into magnesium a magnesium salt bath float.
Mhm.
Has anybody heard of those?
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, Epsom salt baths or
Yeah, they
yeah,
were almost hit the garage. Okay.
yeah. You can get a magnesium spray to just put on topically, and that works for a lot of people rather than taking an oral supplement. So
The
that's a
what I'm
shortcut to
saying
the bath.
what I'm saying, Deanna, is the magnesium float bath was just phenomenal. Like it showed me so much about how important it was. Bowie, as a type 1 diabetic, we have Lewis in the room too. Anybody else who's in the room who's not said hi, hello? I'm on the phone, so I can't see if people are actually in the room. Looks like there's a couple of you in there at least. But Bowie, as a type 1 diabetic, have you ever experienced the miraculous benefits of the float bath? Like, can you comment on that? Because it's phenomenal. If anybody is a type 1, anyone, but type 1 diabetic, it is absolutely, it's measurable. It's really cool. Have you done it, Bowie?
I have done several float baths. I think it attacks, well, it doesn't attack, but it addresses a lot of the needs of diabetes on multiple fronts. So magnesium chloride is one of the main salts that they use in float tanks. Magnesium chloride is the most common topical magnesium salt used, which Deanna mentioned, the topical spray. Very, very available, easily transported through the skin. Funny enough, Epsom salts are actually magnesium sulfate. So a lot of the issues that people have with Epsom salts, if they have any, come from their inability to process sulfur, which also is absorbed through the skin when you take an Epsom salt bath. But from a magnesium standpoint, outstanding in terms of inducing relaxation. You have the decrease in stimulation, right? So diabetes, and I would argue almost all autoimmune or metabolic disorders are disorders of hypersympathetic states. So if you can put yourself in a induced parasympathetic state, it's going to decrease the metabolic stress that you're experiencing for however long it may be. So that's where those can really help.
And
Right. So
and maybe
basically,
on the
in a real simple, like
fastest,
kindergarten excuse me, Deanna, in a kindergarten terms, they're basically saying anybody in a hypersympathetic state, like it means you're really in a panic mode all the time, right? You're either your nervous system is going in a panic mode, right? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
Yep.
Right. So when you're
Overstimulated.
right, right. So I highly believe that the trauma has such a huge function, or it's huge. I believe in any autoimmune disease, of course, and where does it all come from, right? Where does that trauma state come from? There's so many ways, right? Boy,
That could be a rat or a chicken or the egg situation, right? Like is our nervous system state induced by our mineral status and our ability to handle oxidative stress, or does the outward environmental stress induce a nutrient wasting state that kind of, they both feed into one another?
yeah, I think they both feed into one another. Absolutely. Yeah, good point. Anybody else? Lewis, I can't bring you on stage, but I mean, once I get to my destination, I've got a meeting at like about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I wish I could bring you on stage, Lewis, and whoever's on there, if you're wanting. I'm sorry, I can't right now.
Yeah, Nikki, my apologies, but I'm going to have to leave because I'm back at work tomorrow. It means I've got to get very early, and I am 5 hours ahead of you, so it's getting quite late here. So, Bowie, it's been absolutely fantastic to meet you, and it's been very, very interesting. As I said, I'm a former type 2 diabetic, but I managed to heal myself through going very low carb. So, yeah, it's been great. Deanna, lovely to see you again, as it always is. And Nikki, thank you very much for hosting. But I am going to have to leave, so I'm going to say good night to you folks, and also good night to the guests. So, good night, everybody.
So long, George.
Good
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Follow Bowie. He's really interesting. Yeah, I'll put your links in the bio, the description of the show, so people can follow you, Bowie. I really honor the information that you've shared over the years. Like, 'cause it's only been 2.5 years for me, and I've really appreciated, like I said earlier, to those who weren't here, that I just appreciate all the information you've provided. We may not eat the same or think like, but I think that the information you provide is very valuable for people to hear, especially with like people who are going through diabetes, or people like health coaches, stuff, who love health.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have, I mean, it's wonderful to have people that are, thinking differently, but getting really good results as well. It's, we all have a little, we're all the same species, but, what we've done to our physiology, where we come to and where we start, and then it may change, after a couple more years of me doing what I'm doing, I may find that I can change to some different things.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Adaptation is a part of it all. And I think when we start to.
And that's being aware. It's not being dogmatic. I mean, I watched a vegan podcast the other day with a woman that had stage 3 lung cancer. And she had changed her diet for ethical reasons. And she was nowhere near what she was doing wasn't helping her. But yet it was like one of those things like, oh, I need the carnivore harder. I need the vegan harder. I need to keep doing something. And that's where I think people have to give themselves grace too. That, if it's working, that's excellent. Keep on the same path. But if it's not, be open to explore something else. Whether it's carnivore or keto or vegetarianism or a combination, or
Yes,
we have
strike
to
a balance.
tune into our bodies and ask for that gut gut instinct. Follow our gut sometimes, literally and metaphorically.
Yes.
Yeah, literally. Okay, so I'm going to close this out right now. I've got to keep some power for my meeting. So thank you so much,
Thank you, Bowie.
and big love to you all. We'll talk to you
Yes.
later, Bowie.
It's been a pleasure.
And
Thank you so much for having me.
you're
Okay,
welcome. And
make me
Deanna will be on
safe.
our show.
Thank you.
Deanna will be on our show next week too. So we'll see you later. Bye for now.
All right, everyone.
Bye.